Hello, my fellow IFOC chaplains. This is Larry Burden, Leadership Liaison with the IFOC. Coming today just to share a story actually that I read recently that I wanted to just share with you today. I'll just read it the way it is written here in this document. A nurse took the tired, anxious serviceman to the bedside. "Your son is here," she said to the old man lying in the bed. She had to repeat the words several times before the old man could actually open up his eyes. He was heavily sedated because of the pain of his heart attack, and he dimly saw the young uniformed Marine standing outside the oxygen tent. When he saw the Marine, he reached his hand out from under the tent, and the Marine wrapped his tough fingers around the old man's limp hand, squeezing a message of love and encouragement to this man who was lying in the bed. The nurse brought a chair so the Marine could sit beside the bed, and all through the night the young Marine sat there in the poorly lighted ward, holding the old man's hand and offering him words of love and strength. Occasionally the nurse would suggest to the Marine, "Why don't you move and walk and take a little break?" But each time that she did, he would refuse. He said, "No, ma'am, I'm going to sit right here throughout the night." Whenever the nurse came into the ward, the Marine was just oblivious that she was even there. He was oblivious to the noises of the hospital, the clanking of oxygen tanks, the laughter of the night staff members exchanging greetings, the cries and the moans of other patients that were in the ward where he was. Now and then she heard him say a few gentle words to the dying man. And the dying man said nothing, only held tightly to his son all through the night. Along towards dawn, the old man died. The Marine released the now lifeless hand he had been holding and went to tell the nurse. And while the nurse did what she had to do, he just quietly waited for her to return. And finally she did return. She started to offer words of sympathy, but the Marine interrupted her and said, "Who was that man?" And the nurse was startled. She said, "Well, he was your father." The Marine looked at her and said, "No, he wasn't. I never saw this man before in my life." "Well, why didn't you say something when I took you to him?" she asked. And he said, "Well, I knew right away when I saw him that there had been a mistake. But I also knew that he needed his son, and his son just wasn't here. So when I realized that he was too sick to tell whether or not I was his son, knowing how much he needed me, I stayed. You see, I actually came here tonight to find a Mr. William Gray. You see, his son was killed in Iraq today, and I was sent to inform him of his son's death." And by the way, what was this man's name that I sat with? The nurse, with tears in her eyes, said his name was Mr. William Gray. So I love this story because here is a Marine who came to bring unhappy news to the father of the son who was killed in action in the war. When he got there, he found that there was an older man that was there who needed him. And so rather than push this man aside to go and take care of his assignment, he stopped and he sat and he became a minister of presence throughout the night for this old man. He realized the man thought he was his son, and so he decided, "I will be his son for this night," only to find out that the very next morning when he died, that he was actually the father that he had come to tell about the death of his own son. So I love this story. I'm reminded of a fellow chaplain of ours who had a friend who lost a granddaughter. She was about a month away from high school graduation, and she suddenly died from a massive stroke. And he was devastated for his friend, and he drove for hours to get to the funeral service where this granddaughter was going to be memorialized, and he wanted to just be there for his friend. And as he walked into the church, the lobby of the church was just filled with people, and he looked desperately to try to find his friend, and he found over in a far corner of that big open foyer of the church, there his friend was standing in the corner all by himself. My friend said, "I saw him afar from across the room, and so I made my way through the crowd, greeting people here and there. But I made my way over to the corner where my friend was standing all by himself. And when I got there, We looked at each other in the eye, and I just stood there beside him. Never said a word. He never said a word. I never said a word. We stood there for some time, the chaplain told me, until the funeral director came out and said, "It's time for the service." And he said my friend slowly walked away. About 2 weeks later, he telephoned his friend to see how he was doing. And when he heard his voice on the phone, his friend said to him, "You will never know. You will never know. You will never know." And the chaplain was thinking, "I will never know what?" And then he realized that his friend was trying to say to him, "You'll never know what it meant for you to be there in the time when I needed you most." That's what chaplain ministry is, isn't it? We are the hands and feet of Jesus. We are those who feel empathy for others, and we stand in the gap as ministers of presence, and we just be there for those who need us. So never doubt the power of presence. Never doubt the importance of your role as a chaplain to be there when the need arises, and to hold a hand, to speak a word of encouragement, to sit through a difficult time or season in the life of someone else and help them to walk through that season to a place of completion. God's equipped you for this and has anointed you for this, and I'm so very thankful that each one of you do this so very, very well. So thank you for letting me just share that with you, and bless you as you continue in your missions as IFOC chaplains. Bless you.